What are you doing here? The voice is a rusty hinge, full of gravel and suspicion. A thick hand, covered in coarse blonde hair, slams down on the small table. The coffee in Dr. Eris Thorne's mug sloshes over the rim, a brown wave threatening the edge of her leather-bound journal. She does not flinch. She does not look up. Not yet. She finishes her sentence, the nib of her fountain pen scratching a final, elegant curve onto the page. Only then does she lift her head, her gaze calm, analytical. Two men in uniform stand over her. One is older, thick in the middle, with a face flushed from anger or high blood pressure. His name tag reads Miller. The other is younger, leaner, with a nervous energy that makes his eyes dart around the quiet diner. Evans. I asked you a question, sweetheart, Miller says. His voice is a low growl, meant to intimidate. It is a tool he has used 1,000 times. Eris slowly places her pen beside her journal. She looks at his hand, still planted firmly on her table, then back to his face. Her expression is one of mild curiosity, the look of a scientist observing a particularly loud, simple specimen. You did, she agrees. Her voice is even, a clear, low contralto that cuts through the diner's ambient hum. You asked what I am doing here. Miller's eyes narrow. He is not used to this. He is used to fear, to stammering, to immediate, fawning respect. That's right, he says, leaning in, his breath sour with stale coffee. We don't get many of your type in Northwood, especially not just sitting around. Eris blinks slowly. My type? She asks, the question genuine. Do you mean people who enjoy quiet diners? Or perhaps people who write in journals? Deputy Evans shifts his weight from one foot to the other. He can feel the heat of embarrassment rising on his neck. He glances at the diner's owner, a kind older woman named Mary, who is frozen behind the counter, polishing a glass with a terrified intensity. You know what I mean, Miller snarls, his patience, always a shallow reservoir, evaporating completely. Eris considers this. She maintains eye contact, her gaze unwavering. This, too, is a tool, one she has honed in rooms far more dangerous than a small-town diner. No, Officer Miller, she says, her voice losing none of its precision. I am afraid I do not. Could you please clarify your question? She is not provoking him, not intentionally. She is simply operating on a different level of communication, one that demands clarity and rejects assumption. To Miller, it feels like mockery. It feels like a challenge to the fragile authority he wraps around himself like a cheap coat. He complies. He always complies. But this is different. This woman is not afraid. And that makes him furious. Eris is not in this town by chance. This was her grandmother's home. The small, clapboard house at the end of Elm Street is still filled with the scent of lavender and old books. Eris inherited it 2 years ago, but this is the first time she has had a moment to visit. A moment. 24 months of 16-hour days, of threats that could unravel nations, of bearing a weight that would crush most people, had finally resulted in a forced leave. Take a vacation, director, the president had said, his tone leaving no room for argument. Go somewhere quiet. Disconnect. So she came here, to Northwood, a place she remembered from childhood summers as a haven of fireflies and unconditional love. She brought no security detail. She used her personal car. She wore jeans and a faded sweatshirt from her university days. She wanted to be invisible, anonymous. She wanted to be Eris Thorne, granddaughter, not Director Thorne of the Federal Bureau of Investigation. The journal on the table is not a diary. It is the culmination of a decade of thought, a radical new framework for federal and local law enforcement cooperation. It details protocols for de-escalation, community engagement, and accountability. It is a blueprint for a better way, handwritten because the thoughts are too important, too foundational, to be trusted to a hard drive just yet. It is, in a very real sense, the future. And Officer Miller's hand is resting inches from it. Deputy Evans watches the scene unfold, a cold dread coiling in his stomach. He is only 6 months out of the academy. He took this job to help people, to follow in his father's footsteps. He believed in the shield he wore. Miller is making him question that belief. He has seen Miller's casual cruelty before. A rough stop on a teenager. A dismissive attitude toward a domestic violence call. Chief Brody always waves it away. Miller's old school, he'd say with a shrug. Gets the job done. But this is different. This woman is doing nothing. Absolutely nothing. She sits with a poise and stillness that is almost unsettling. Evans notices the subtle way her phone is propped against the sugar dispenser, its camera lens pointing directly at Miller's flushed face. It is a deliberate, silent act of documentation. He sees it. Miller does not. Miller sees only what his prejudice allows him to see. A black woman in a town he considers his own, acting with a confidence he finds offensive. License and registration. He barks, though she is not in a vehicle. The command is automatic, a blunt instrument of authority. I am not operating a motor vehicle, officer, Eris states calmly. I don't care. I want to see your ID. Now, Eris maintains her composure. This is an unlawful demand, a clear violation of her Fourth Amendment rights. She could fight it. She could quote case law that would make his head spin. But that is not the mission. The mission, now, is to observe, to allow the subject to reveal the full extent of his pathology. She reaches into her bag, her movements slow and deliberate. She retrieves a simple leather wallet and extracts her driver's license. She places it on the table. Miller snatches it. He squints at the name. Eris Thorne. He scoffs at the Washington, D.C. address. A long way from home, aren't you? He turns to Evans. Run this. Evans hesitates. On what grounds, Miller? He whispers, desperate. On the grounds that I told you to. Miller growls, loud enough for the entire diner to hear. Defeated, Evans takes the license and retreats to the patrol car. Eris watches him go. She sees the conflict in his young face, the slump of his shoulders. He is a witness, a moral witness, and his choice in the next few minutes will define his career. It may even define his life. Miller leans back over the table, a smug grin spreading across his face. He believes he is winning. He has asserted his dominance. So, Eris, he says, mispronouncing her name with deliberate disrespect. What kind of trouble are you planning on starting in my town? I had planned on finishing my coffee, she replies, her gaze flicking down to the cold, stained mug, and then perhaps visiting the local library. Her placid response infuriates him more than any argument could. It is a quiet rejection of his entire worldview. He needs her to be scared. He needs her to be angry. Her professional calm is a mirror, and he does not like the reflection. Evans returns, his face pale. It's clean, he says quietly. No warrants. No record at all. This is the worst possible news for Miller. A clean record means he has no leverage, no justification. It exposes his actions for what they are, pure, unadulterated harassment. He shoves the license back across the table. It skitters over the surface and falls to the floor. Eris does not move to pick it up. Miller's eyes land on the journal, the object of her focus, the source of her quiet confidence. He sees the intricate handwriting, the complex diagrams in the margins. It is a language he does not understand, and that makes him hate it. What's this? He sneers, his voice dripping with contempt. Your little diary? He reaches for it. I would not do that, officer, Eris says. Her voice is different now. The calm is still there, but it is layered over something hard and cold. A diamond edge. Too late. He snatches the journal. He feels its weight, the quality of the leather. It feels important, which makes his next action feel even more powerful. He flips through the pages, his grimy thumb smudging the ink. He sees terms like jurisdictional oversight, Fourth Amendment precedent, and psychological profiling in recruitment. It is gibberish to him. Looks like a bunch of nonsense to me, he declares to the silent diner. Then, with a theatrical flourish, he picks up his own coffee mug from the counter. He holds it over the open journal. Oops, he says, his eyes locked on hers, a cruel smile playing on his lips. He tilts the mug. Hot, black coffee pours onto the pages. The ink bleeds. The paper warps. Years of work, of thought, of hope, are instantly saturated and ruined. A dark, ugly stain spreads across the blueprint for a better world. Silence. A deep, profound silence hangs in the air. Mary, the owner, lets out a small, choked gasp. Evans looks like he is going to be sick. This is the breaking point. The irreversible act. The moment the trap is sprung. Eris Thorne's composure does not break. It transforms. The calm hardens into something absolute. The observer has finished observing. The analyst has all the data she needs. Slowly, deliberately, she stands. She is taller than Miller expected, her posture perfect. She radiates an authority that has nothing to do with a uniform or a badge. It comes from within. "Officer Miller," she says, and her voice is the sound of a gavel striking wood. "You have just willfully destroyed United States government property." Miller throws his head back and laughs. It is a loud, ugly sound. "Government property? This trash? You're delusional, lady." He decides to complete the humiliation. "That's it. You're under arrest. Disorderly conduct. Resisting." "I am not resisting," Eris states. "You are now," he says, grabbing her arm. His grip is tight, painful. He shoves her toward the door. He wants her in his territory. In a cell. In the station where his word is law and Chief Brody will back any story he tells. He believes he has won. He believes he is untouchable. He has no idea that he is a dead man walking. The Northwood Police Station is a small, cramped building that smells of stale bleach and regret. Miller shoves Eris into a hard plastic chair in the processing area. He is enjoying himself immensely. Chief Brody is in his office, the door ajar. He glances out, sees Miller with a black woman, and turns back to his paperwork, unconcerned. It is just Miller being Miller. "You get one phone call," Miller says, gesturing to the grimy phone on the wall. "Better call someone to post your bail. It's going to be high." Eris stands. She walks to the phone. She does not look at Miller. She does not look at Brody. She looks at a point on the far wall, her focus entirely internal. She picks up the receiver and dials a 10-digit number from memory. Miller leans against a desk, arms crossed, a smug look on his face. He expects a frantic call to a boyfriend, a mother, a public defender. The call connects. Eris's voice fills the small room, crisp and utterly devoid of fear. "This is Director Thorne. Security Authentication Alpha 9 Tango. I require an immediate and direct patch to Governor Thompson. Priority 1. Acknowledge." The change in the room is instantaneous. Miller's smirk vanishes. The words do not compute. "Director? Director of what?" "The local library." Chief Brody, hearing the name Governor Thompson, puts down his pen. He slowly swivels his chair around and peers out of his office, his expression shifting from disinterest to confusion. A tinny voice squawks from the phone's earpiece, audible in the dead silence. "Authentication confirmed, Director. Stand by for the governor." "Director." The word hangs in the air like smoke. Miller's face goes slack. He uncrosses his arms. He takes a half-step forward, his brain struggling to reconcile the woman in the faded sweatshirt with the voice of absolute command she just used. It is at this moment that Deputy Evans makes his choice. He steps forward, his hands trembling slightly, but his voice clear. "Chief," he says, his voice cracking but resolute. "Chief Brody, you need to know. He had no cause. He harassed her. He destroyed her property. I saw the whole thing." Brody's eyes widen. He looks from his panicked rookie to the impossibly calm woman on the phone. A new voice comes through the receiver, smooth and powerful. The voice of Governor Thompson. "Director Thorne? What is this? My aide said it was priority 1-inch." Eris turns slightly, her gaze sweeping over a now-frozen Officer Miller. "Good afternoon, Governor," she says, her tone as professional as if she were in a secure briefing room in Washington. "I apologize for the unconventional channel. I am currently being unlawfully detained at the Northwood Police Department by one of your municipal officers." She pauses, then delivers the final, devastating blow. "His name is Officer Miller. Badge number 714-inch. The color drains from Miller's face. His skin turns a pasty, mottled gray. Disbelief gives way to a tidal wave of pure, unadulterated panic. His legs feel weak. The room begins to spin. Chief Brody stumbles out of his office, his face a mask of horror. He understands. He understands completely. He is looking at the end of his world. The governor's voice on the phone is no longer smooth. It is arctic. "Director, are you harmed?" "I am physically unharmed, Governor," Eris replies. "However, my work product, relating to a federal initiative you and I discussed last month, has been intentionally destroyed. I have the entire incident documented on audio." There is a pause. Then, the governor speaks, his voice a blade of cold steel. "Stay on the line, Director. Help is on the way. Do not let anyone in that room touch you." Less than 20 minutes pass. It feels like a lifetime. Miller stands rooted to the spot, sweating profusely. Brody babbles apologies, which Eris ignores completely. Then comes the sound of sirens. Not the familiar yelp of the Northwood patrol cars, but the deep, resonant wail of the state police. 2 black sedans and 3 state police cruisers screech to a halt outside the small station. Doors fly open. Stern-faced men and women in sharp suits and tactical vests flood the building. They move with a quiet, lethal efficiency that makes the local department look like a collection of amateurs. Leading them is a formidable woman with silver hair and eyes that miss nothing. Captain Rivera of the State Police Major Crimes Unit. She walks directly to Eris. "Director Thorne," she says with a crisp nod. "Captain Rivera, the governor sent us. The scene is secure." Eris simply nods back. "Captain." Rivera turns her icy gaze on Miller and Brody. "You two. You are relieved of duty. Hand over your weapons and badges." Now, a formal investigation begins on the spot. It is swift. It is brutal. It is precise. Eris calmly transfers the audio file from her phone to Rivera's lead investigator. Deputy Evans, now standing tall, gives a clear, detailed, and damning statement, his voice unwavering. Rivera sends a team to the diner. Mary, the owner, no longer afraid, tells them everything. She tells them about this incident and about other times she has seen Miller bully and harass people. Other patrons who had fled now return, eager to give their own statements. The case against Miller is not a house of cards. It is a fortress. But the investigation does not stop with him. Captain Rivera, at the direct order of the governor, launches a full-scale audit of the Northwood Police Department. They seize personnel files, complaint records, and computer hard drives. They find what Eris already suspected. A pattern. A deep, systemic rot. Miller's file is a monument to negligence. It is filled with dozens of citizen complaints, excessive force, racial profiling, verbal abuse. All of them dismissed by Chief Brody with a cursory note. Unfounded. Officer acted within departmental guidelines. Brody is not just an enabler. He is an architect of the department's corruption. His career is not just over. It is about to be dismantled in a very public and humiliating way. The fallout is immediate and catastrophic for the guilty. Officer Miller is placed in handcuffs by a state trooper. He is formally charged with destruction of government property, deprivation of civil rights under color of law, and unlawful imprisonment. As he is led away, he looks at Eris one last time, his eyes pleading, uncomprehending. He still doesn't understand what happened. He saw a target, not a person, and he cannot fathom how the world he controlled so completely could shatter so fast. Chief Brody is placed on administrative leave, a prelude to his termination and potential criminal charges for obstruction of justice. The state takes over the Northwood Police Department, dissolving its current leadership structure. The governor holds a press conference that evening. He publicly apologizes to Director Thorne. He announces the formation of a new statewide task force on police accountability and reform. He names its chairperson, FBI Director Eris Thorne. Her ruined journal, now carefully sealed in an evidence bag, becomes a symbol. The governor promises that the ideas within it, the Thorne Initiative, the press calls it, will become the new gold standard for law enforcement in the state. Her vacation is over. Her true work, amplified and empowered by the very injustice she suffered, has just begun. Deputy Evans is a hero. Captain Rivera personally commends him for his integrity and courage. She offers him a spot at the State Police Academy, a chance to become the kind of officer he always wanted to be, far from the toxic influence of men like Miller. He accepts without hesitation. Months later, Eris stands at a podium, looking out at a sea of new graduates from the State Police Academy. In the front row, his back straight and his eyes bright with pride, is Trooper Evans. The Northwood Police Department has been rebuilt from the ground up. The Thorne Initiative is now law, its principles of de-escalation, transparency, and accountability woven into the fabric of every department in the state. Eris looks at the fresh, hopeful faces before her. She does not speak of vengeance. She speaks of honor. She speaks of the immense responsibility that comes with the power to enforce the law. She speaks of seeing people, not targets. Justice, she knows, is not merely about punishing the guilty. It is about building a better, safer, and more just world for everyone else. In the quiet town of Northwood, because of one man's prejudice and one woman's unshakable resolve, that process has finally, truly begun.